bodies drained. In a world we kill, a world we feel pain. Ongoing suffering. Are we all insane? People still go around killing. People still call each other names. We divide ourselves from the black and the white. We divide ourselves into religions, the left wing and the right. In a world still full of wars, do we have to fight? Do we have to still argue and take each other's lives? When we look at each other, when we look at another person's life, when we fight, it's like it's one big homicide. We tend to forget about poverty and only think about greed. We tend to forget about another person and only our own need. Do we not realize that we all have to breathe? We should give out a hand and not turn the other cheek. Pain and suffering, why can't we get along? Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
Sing one song for the world.
Pain and suffering, why can't we get along?
Is it so hard?
Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
Just one song.
The news is depressing, never anything positive to see. Terrorist attacks still happen, the truth is never seen. The media pointing the finger, making up stories causing pain. Religions labeled as terrorists, the media should be put to shame. People still judge for the sexual orientation. Does it matter if you're gay? You should be able to still climb the ladder. This world should be, and I mean should be, the land of the free. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, brown, if you're Chinese. I can't stand how a human can stab another in the heart. What we all done for a soul that we so apart. I think we should go back to the start and think out our lives. People constantly living in fear all the time. I fear for the future of our next generations. Will they be isolated, trapped in their own nations? No freedom to travel, no freedom to do as they want. Do you think it's a bad time that we all give up? Pain and suffering, why can't we get along?
Why can't we get along?
Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
Just the one song for the world.
Pain and suffering, why can't we get along?
Is it so hard?
Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
Yo, take away the labels, take away the titles, take away the
other arch rivals.
Take away the blood, the guts, the bone and the skin. Then you will see the soul shining deep within. Your vision of hate, decision you create. Vision of hate. Give compassion with precision and aim. We need the power to tolerate, with the power to accommodate. Follow faith, cooperate, and break these chains of the copper age. Parents done screaming to death, burying their own children. Lost in the war, violence and greed that happily challenge to kill them. The whole world digging externally, trying to find peace, but they're puzzled. But if you look within, you find the missing piece of the puzzle. Times are hard, so give regard. Check the mirror of our heart. Give a loving thought, a gentle smile, or a good wish. Understand the power of pure feelings, what good wishes and love can really do. I guess in the end, it all starts with me and you.
Pain and suffering, why can't we get along?
Why can't we get along in this world?
Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
Just the one song.
Pain and suffering, why can't we get along?
Is it so hard?
Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
Just the one song.
Pain and suffering, why can't we get along?
Get along united.
Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
One song for the world.
Pain and suffering, why can't we get along? Pain and suffering, why can't we sing one song?
One song together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A very warm welcome to you, to Harmony House. Thank you for your time in coming today and showing your support to this amazing event that we've got today, the healing energy of compassion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Brahma Kumaris, welcome to Harmony House. And we have some very distinguished guests. We're very pleased to welcome the Right Worshipful Lord Mayor of Leicester and Lady Mayoress, Councillor Rashmi Kant. Thank you very much. A round of applause, please. And we'd just like to present a bouquet of flowers. Thank you. And I would kindly request the Lord Mayor just to come for a couple of minutes, just to share his views on about the topic. Would you like to come on stage, please?
Good evening. Om Shanti, Jai Shri Krishna, and a Haribol. Thank you so much for inviting me and Lady Mayoress Meeta Joshi to this magnificent place, which I have seen developing from a former hosiery knitwear into a beautiful place where people get together and get the important, the most valuable positive energy we always look for. In today's busy life, we do not seem to have time for ourselves, me time. Every time I have come here, and it has been quite often, that I have listened to lectures by Didi Janki, and today we have an introduction and series of lectures and a dialogue with Sister Jayanti, which I'm very much looking forward to. Every time I come here, I find a lot of happiness, quiet moment, and fill myself with lots of positive energy. And that is what is required in today's daily life. The world is full of hatred. We have seen acts of violence. Last night, when I went home from one of the events I was attending, and my son and daughter were discussing and talking about the event that happened in London, I couldn't believe my eyes once again that 2 weeks later, what we saw in Manchester and last night in London, my heart was filled with so much sadness and sorrow that how can a misguided individual or individuals go on about causing acts of violence and taking innocent lives. Immediately my thoughts and prayers went to the victims of this act of violence last night, and I have prayed for them, and we also pray for the victims and those who are injured as well. In this time, what we need, as we have heard a beautiful song by two lovely gentlemen, and the lyrics and the words are so powerful. And what we need in today's day and age is lots of love, compassion, and care for each other. If everyone adopted these three values, the world would be a better place to live. There would be no more violence, and we can all live in one big family. I would like to thank the Brahma Kumaris and the Harmony Center for inviting me here. And this place is no strange place to me. As I have said, I've been here since the day you acquired this place, and I have seen the transformation. Bhupen Bhai brought me here while the works was going on, and he told me about the time scale that we have to finish. And I spoke to the workers who were here, and I said to them, are you sure that you are going to finish in the time scale you have just mentioned? And they were confident that they will be able to do that. And I was here when the opening ceremony took place. And to see the magnificent transformation you have created is wonderful and exemplary. And it gives me a great pleasure to come here and sit for an hour or so, listen to Sister Jayanti, and I'm going to relax myself. At the end of the show, end of the dialogue, I'm sure that my mind, body, and soul will be in check. I'll be full of energy. We both have had a very busy schedule today. This is my last engagement, so I'm going to sit, relax, enjoy, and get my positive energy back to the 100% level. So thank you so much for inviting both of us here, and I'm sure you are going to enjoy this dialogue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, the Lord Mayor of Leicester. So what a wonderful topic, because in this day and age, we see so much atrocities that are happening, and it's amazing at times of these moments, compassion comes out. I'm sure you heard the stories when the Manchester bombing took place. You heard the acts of the taxi drivers taking the victims, some as far as way to Liverpool for free of charge, people opening their doors to random people that they've never met before and just saying, okay, can we help you? Can you give you accommodation? That is a true sign of compassion. And that really sort of inspires hopes in all of us that there is room for improvement. And we all have it, but we don't show it as much as we should do. But tonight, we have two very eloquent speakers. Sister Jayanti, the European Directress of the Brahma Kumaris, and award-winning journalist for ITV, RAJIV POPAT. They're going to share their insight into the healing energy of compassion. So without further ado, may I invite them onto the stage, please.
Welcome to Leicester and, of course, to Harmony House. It's lovely to meet you, and I've been looking forward to the conversation with you. There's a lot to talk about today. There's a lot to get through. So we'll be talking everything about meditation, about yourself. Want to find out a bit more about you. But I'd like to start, if it's okay, to talk about the events of last night. If we could just turn our attention to what happened last night. I know all our thoughts are with the victims and their families. We heard Paramjit talk about today's subject, the healing energy of compassion. I was just wondering, Sister Jayanti, how do you show compassion to individuals who did something like take the lives of innocent people away? How do you show compassion to those people? Is that possible?
Good evening and Om Shanti. And yes, it's my honor to be here with you. By chance, and I say that knowing that nothing happens by chance, somebody had sent me a WhatsApp film, and there were other things going on in London, but it captured my attention, and I decided I wanted to pursue looking at it. And this was a documentary done by Four Corners, some organization or a channel in Australia. And it was done in 2014. And it was about an investigation that an Australian lawyer was doing And this was about Palestinian children. One was age 5, one was 9, the others were around 12, and some were about 14, 15. And there were interviews with these children, with their parents and others, and it was quite horrific. It was very, very sad. And it was settlers complaining about stones being thrown at them. One settler making a complaint about one 5-year-old child that he had thrown a stone and he was denying it, but whatever. And this 5-year-old child was taken away by the military police. I think about 5 of them came. And this was a sort of military motion that came into act because of the complaint of one settler. The end of that particular documentary stated, and it showed a whole row of young Palestinian youth. And the comment was, what are these young people going to do when they grow up? That was the last statement that the documentary finished with. I finished seeing that by about 8:45 p.m. And then I didn't hear the news last night. I didn't meet people except those who were in the house, and they hadn't been watching the news. This morning I saw this and I thought to myself, I probably would have felt quite differently about the events last night had I not seen that documentary. And it highlighted for me the fact that you never know what is the story behind the story. And so you see one side of the story and you say, well, this is a victim, this is the offender, this is the perpetrator. And then you step back a little bit and you say, well, what is it that's actually going on? And it's the story of history, it's a story of culture, it's a story of uprising, it's a story of injustice over a few hundred years. So it's not a story of today, but it's a story that's built up. And so at this moment, my own feeling is, as a meditator, what I would like to do is to send thoughts of God's light and God's love and peace to everyone. Because some are being described as victims, but the ones who carried out the atrocity are also themselves actually victims. Victims not only of their own violence, which they are, but they're also victims of injustice over centuries. So where does it begin? And who do you point a finger to? And so I think for all of us here, it's very important to understand that there has to be a state in which one understands that we are in a period of darkness, in which everyone, all human beings are caught up in that darkness. And so what we need to do is to invoke God's light and share that with everyone.
I think many people are still coming to terms with what happened in Manchester 2 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks prior to that at Westminster. And many would say that what we're dealing with is a mindset. And how is it possible to tackle a global issue like terrorism with compassion and healing? Is it possible to tackle it with that?
My question would be, is there any other way to tackle it? Do we become aggressive? Do we say that we're going to do something against these people? We are not going to allow them to survive. We're going to eliminate them. We can do all sorts of things, but probably we'll be increasing the anger and the injustice and the violence. And it's not going to be the way to be able to eliminate it. And if I think about the human being, the original intrinsic quality of the human being is that of love and compassion. And so, is it possible for us to collectively increase our own level of love and compassion to such an extent to bring it to that point of critical mass where it's able to influence others and bring about change in that way? I don't think we have a choice. I don't think we can say we're going to fight this aggression. If I start fighting this aggression, I'm going to multiply the whole cycle of violence and action and reaction. I'm reminded of Mahatma Gandhi and how, with the power of non-violence, he was able to change a situation that at that time seemed intractable. It was impossible to imagine that the power of non-violence and no weaponry could actually overcome the might of the British Empire. And yet it did. Why? Because, again, non-violence is the original quality of the human spirit. And so when you're tapping into the energy and those resources of the human being, the soul, which are actually eternal energies, you're tapping into a force which is not just your own, but you're tapping into a force which is a universal force. And so I think in a world that's very materialistic, more materialistic than 70 years ago, we have to start talking about these things and talking about an alternative way. You can't just say that we have to use aggression, that we have to lock up these people, we have to throw out these people. Can't. It's going to just make things worse. It's going to make things more aggressive, more violent, more dangerous, and the atmosphere of fear is going to spread even further. But if we can look at it differently, from a spiritual perspective, a higher standpoint, then we'll see that the power of truth, of goodness, is greater than anger and aggression. And I think that even if this group of people were to be aware of that, the multiplication of the energy of goodness can have an impact.
As we saw in the video, it says an act of goodness can create ripples, and you strongly believe that love can conquer all, in effect.
Absolutely. I don't think there's an alternative.
Many of the people here in the room with us today are involved with the Brahma Kumaris. Some have dipped their toe in the water, shall we say. I'd just like to ask, how did you get involved?
I was very lucky. My family, my mother, grandmother were both involved, and so I trotted along with them as a kid. And then when we migrated to London soon after that, my mother continued with her practice. But I myself came to a point where I could see many choices in front of me. This was in the 60s, 1968, 67. And there was a permissive society, there was a traditional Western society, there was a traditional Indian society influence. And I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to choose.
You didn't know where to sit? No.
I really didn't. But at that time, I spent time in India and went knocking on the door of Dadi Janki because I'd known her since a child. And she opened up something in here, and my journey began.
So it's something you've always known in a way, because if you've been brought up with that, haven't you? In a way, you haven't known much different. Is it fair to say that?
I've known that there is a spiritual path, but I didn't know that it was something for me. I thought it was fine for my mother, but I only adopted it myself 11 years later,
right,
after seeing her meditate.
And did you embrace it fully with the meditation? Is that what you did?
From the moment I knocked on Dadi Janki's door just to find out, well, let me know what the teachings are at least, just out of curiosity. 6 weeks later, I decided this is to be my life, and that was 49 years ago, and I haven't changed my mind.
You haven't looked back? And what was it? Just describe that experience. What was it about that made you go down that path?
The first experience happened within the first hour of coming into the center and starting to study. I was hearing about the way the mind works, and how there are many influences on our conscience, and because of that we are not able to see what is right and what is wrong. There's peer pressure, there's media pressure, there's many influences, education and all sorts. And so when I understood that this is why we get confused and it's difficult to know about what is the path I need to follow, where is it that I'm going? We don't even know where the destination is. And so once, within that first hour, some of these ideas were being clarified, and I decided this is a line worth pursuing. I want to find out more about these things and explore them and experience them.
And that's something that's taken you far and wide. You travel. You're known as the flying angel. I've just learnt not too long ago. It takes you to a lot of places, doesn't it, to spread the word, as it were?
What we found is that people across the world are now interested in these ideas. Last year, I went to China, and I've been to China several times before. But this time it was a very different experience in which, for example, in one particular city, Guangzhou, we had 400 young Chinese people come. And the program was a very simple program on a lecture of meditation. And it was publicized as that, just meditation. And I asked afterwards, how did all these people come? How did they hear about this? And a 19-year-old Chinese boy told me, social media. And so social media gathered all these people together. And so it's the methodology of reaching out to people has become global. The ideas that people are searching for are global. The answers are actually also global. And so there's a need for all of this right now, this minute.
I was impressed when you mentioned WhatsApp earlier as well. That's quite good. My dad, who is now in his 70s, has recently got into WhatsApp, and he sends me pearls of wisdom every day.
Great.
In fact, sometimes too many, 15 a day. And he's surprised that I don't always reply to each and every one because there are too many. I'd just like to talk about meditation because I know that's something that is very important to you, isn't it? Just tell me how important that is to you and what role it plays in your life. I imagine it's quite big.
We've talked about devices, and I'm seeing one right here. How would this function if you didn't recharge it?
How it wouldn't function and I wouldn't function.
Well, I was going to be the next step. If this isn't functioning, how would you function?
Yeah, but with great difficulty.
Exactly.
We've come to rely on these things, haven't we?
Well, this is a little bit like meditation in the sense that meditation is the recharging of my own inner world. And whether you call it the computer inside, the battery inside, or the living being, the energy that I am, the soul. So meditation is that recharging of the self that I need absolutely every day. And in fact, I'd go further and I'd say you need little moments of recharging through the day. If there's many things to do and not enough time to do them, and many demands and many people, which is probably true for most of us, you need to find methods of recharging. And for me, that's meditation. Just allowing my mind to go inwards rather than stay out there. And in that inner journey, connecting with the goodness that I was talking about earlier, that I believe is there in every single human being. But we don't access it, we don't spend time. Lord Mayer described it as me time, which is perfect. And so that time to go inside. And when I do that, then I can connect with a higher being and draw that power within myself. And this allows me not only to survive, but even maybe to thrive in today's conditions.
Really? Mm. And I think a lot of us are busy with work, with making breakfast in the morning for the children or getting ready for work. I imagine, and I'm probably could be wrong, but I imagine you have a very serene lifestyle. I can't imagine it being very manic. And is that where you draw your strength from in terms with meditation? Do you have manic moments?
Well, if I tell you I have 80 emails a day to reply.
Wow.
And I usually have, this morning, my first class started at 7 o'clock with a Skype class to Budapest.
Really?
And after that, I went into the London class. And after that, I was on the motorway and came straight into a program here.
Wow.
So that's half a day of my life. But my day started earlier.
It starts early. And is meditation something anyone can do? It's because we all do lead busy lifestyles. I often wonder, is that just an excuse not to meditate? Can anyone do it and at any time?
Meditation is something that's absolutely for everyone. My mother taught me to meditate when I was 8 years old, though I lapsed and stopped meditating in between. But 8 years old, and yes, I could actually meditate.
So even children can meditate.
We have
as well.
special children's classes. Children can relax so quickly, and they can use their mind in a very, very powerful way. And so, especially recommended for children.
Wow. I know that we plan to do some meditation. I'm just wondering if this is a good time to perhaps to do some meditation. Is that okay?
Why not?
Okay.
Because a practical demonstration is better than just talking about it.
Okay.
So what we're doing is using the mind in a very specific way. Instead of letting the mind go here and there and everywhere, we're turning the mind in a specific direction, and that's carrying us on that journey to experience the self and the connection with the divine.
Okay.
So I'll speak out my own thoughts and invite you to follow those ideas. And if you'd like to just let the body sit comfortably, preferably don't hold on to things physically or internally, but also let the body rest comfortably, both feet on the ground and your back upright, so that the mind is alert, relaxed but alert. Going on an inner journey. For a short while, I leave the world outside, out there, and turn inwards. And I come to the awareness of the inner being. And I watch my thoughts. And as I watch my mind, the speed of my thoughts slows down. I can be selective about my thoughts. I choose the thought of peace. I hold peace in my mind. And in this awareness, I can feel the presence of the divine, the supreme, the being of light, the source of light, of love, compassion. And from the source of truth and goodness, this light and love reach the soul. And in this awareness, the original qualities of the spirit emerge. The love, the compassion, the truth. I realize that so often I've been so occupied with things outside that I haven't taken the opportunity to look inside. And I've lost touch with my own inner compassion and goodness. But now, as I connect with the goodness within, I realize that it's there. I'd forgotten about it, but it didn't go away. It stayed. And it's still my own original state of being. In the experience of the light of the divine, the goodness of the human spirit emerges. God's light awakens the care and kindness, and God's light reaches out into the world, touching human hearts, awakening the love in their hearts, awakening the compassion of their hearts. God's light reminds us that we belong to one family. Holding this awareness and this experience, my thoughts return to the present moment, to the things here and now. And I carry this awareness of God's love, light, and compassion. Om Shanti.
Sister Jayanti, is it too simplistic to say that meditation can lead to happiness, that it can make somebody happy?
I believe it's the only way that can bring happiness. Why? Because I can't control the things that are going on outside. But what I can do is make sure that my attitude and my feelings remain very positive, so that then I'm able to have an attitude which sees the goodness of the situation, the silver lining in every cloud. I'm able to see the solution rather than get caught up with the problem. And that's what I need for my own happiness. Happiness isn't going to the supermarket and picking it off the shelf, but it's something deep within. And it's only that transformation of understanding and vision and attitude that'll allow me to maintain happiness.
And it seems that so many people are searching for happiness every day. For some people it's about buying a bigger house. For other people it's about a faster car, a bigger car. For other people it's about inner peace. Is it possible for the two to work in perfect harmony, or do you have to relinquish one to find true happiness?
I did an exercise with people at one point, and it was to ask questions. Why do you want a bigger house? I want my family to be together. Why do you want your family to be together? I want us to experience that love. Take them down to the basics, and they'll come out with, what I want is love and peace and happiness. And so you can say that it's the house and the car and everything, but the yearning of the human spirit is actually these things. And I get a bigger house, but if my family is quarreling, is my bigger house going to bring me happiness? So we think that this is the way I'm going to find happiness. I get this flash car and somebody knocks it. The happiness that I had an hour ago is shattered and it's gone. And so I begin to understand, if I'm searching for real happiness and peace, that it's not out there, it's something deep within. And so I don't think it's a question of compatibility. I think it's a question of a deeper understanding and asking myself questions about purpose of life, meaning of life. While I'm content to stay experiencing life on a superficial level, that's it. And it's nothing to do with age. Like I said, I came very early on. And this afternoon I met a young woman, and I think she's still sitting here. She is. And so I'm seeing that when there's a mind that's questioning, then that questioning mind is going to want to go into the depths of understanding and spirituality. And so that's then the path to happiness.
What are the other benefits? Are there health benefits? Because every day we hear about someone close to us who has died or has been diagnosed with a terrible illness. Can meditation help that healing process?
A difficult one, because it's yes and no, in the sense that maybe the meditation isn't going to heal the illness, but what it's doing is giving me a greater capacity to be able to tolerate the pain, not to take it in the spirit of suffering, but to take it in a spirit of giving me time so that I'm able to look at life from a different perspective. How many people have I met who have told me that their journey of spirituality began once they were diagnosed with cancer, for example, or they went through a heart attack, and after that they realized that the most important things in life were not the bank balance of money, but it was the love of the family. So sometimes illness comes as a messenger to make me stop. And if I use that opportunity in this way, then what's happening is the healing of the spirit and the capacity of the spirit to deal with the illness of the body in a much more profound way than otherwise. But if I say, well, here's a pill, this is going to help me. Now, let me meditate for 3 minutes, this is going to help me. It's unlikely. But yes, definitely, meditation. I'll give you an example. I had a car accident many years ago, and there were 14 stitches that had to be put. And that was on the Friday, and by the Monday, I was able to do a TV interview. And the woman who was interviewing me just simply said, "Have you got a bad cold? It looks as if you've got a little bit of a thick lip." And I know that it was meditation that allowed the healing process to work in a very physical way. And so by Monday, I was fine after 14 stitches.
Wow. And have you seen other examples of on other people, for example?
Constantly. There was a young woman, well, she's actually in her 30s, but compared to me, she's young. It's relative, isn't it? So there's this young lady who's into the environment and so on. She's from Denmark, and she came to Oxford to our retreat place a couple of weeks ago, so it's a story that's fresh in my mind. And very, very high flyer in that world and sustainability. She has a network of 200 million people that she's in contact with in terms of sustainability. So that gives you an idea of the level that she works at. And a year and a half ago, she was playing with her 2-year-old daughter, and somehow the child jumped in such a way that she reached out and something happened and she was out of action for 18 months, literally. And she said that I'd seen the Brahma Kumaris at these climate change conferences before, but I thought, I'm too busy saving the world for things like this. Let them get on with their stuff. And so her organization knew us, and we were in touch with them, and they'd even given us a platform at various times, but she personally kept her distance. The accident happened, and of course, why me? And then the prognosis from the doctor, and it's going to be a long time. It's not going to be a few weeks. It's going to be many months. And the thought, am I going to be irrelevant to the world? What's going to happen? Am I going to be ignored for the work I've done? Am I not going to be needed anymore? All those thoughts. And so having gone through that darkness, then somehow coming to an awareness that I need to learn to meditate. And there she was, studying the things of the inner world, listening to those things, beginning to meditate, and that carried her through the next period of time. And the first event she came to after her recovery was a Brahma Kumaris event in Copenhagen. And so she spoke about this experience in front of several hundred people. This is last December. And then this year now she came 2 weeks ago to Oxford and was again sharing this and saying that, this is why I said earlier, sometimes it takes an external situation of an illness to make a person stop and say, what's going on? Let me have a look and see if there's something deeper to life than the things that I've been working at. And so she spoke about how meditation not only gave her the inner courage and stamina to carry on through that period, otherwise it would have been very depressing for her, but also she reckons that probably meditation allowed the healing of the body to happen more quickly than it would have otherwise. So yes, meditation is a fantastic healer of soul and body, but that's not a replacement for you to go to your doctor and take professional help to whatever you need to do. But meditation is a healer.
For people to benefit, if someone has not done meditation before, if it's the first time, how little or how much should they be doing a day or a week?
I shared how within the first hour of my exposure to the teachings, and at an age when I could actually be interested and comprehend the teachings, at the end of that hour, I couldn't stop thinking about the shining light that I am, the awareness of the soul. And I didn't walk home. I can't remember how I made the journey from here to here, which was about a 20-minute walk. I couldn't remember how I'd done that. It was like all that finished. I had been so engaged in just this awareness that I forgot about the bit in between. Suddenly I'm home and my mother's saying, what happened? Because I come in with a shining face. And it was like there was a natural meditation that was going on all the time. It wasn't that I sat down and said, I want to meditate, but those first hours were just such high energy that I couldn't stop thinking about this, and it was a natural meditation. But if I'm looking at it in a very pragmatic way, then I'd say start with 20 minutes, 10 minutes, and let that be a practice morning and evening, and just let yourself meditate for as long as you're comfortable. Don't force yourself, but if your meditation goes on for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, beautiful, carry on. And so, but just begin, just do it.
What do you do, though? I wonder if other people have had this experience where if you're trying to meditate and lots of thoughts come into your mind, silly thoughts, what am I going to cook tonight, or mundane things, what do you do? Should you just stop and give up and start again the next day?
The meditation we are using is very much using the mind. And so, yes, these stray thoughts will come in, and you stop for a moment and say, can this wait? Can I think about this later? And you hold it, you park it, and you continue in the journey that you've decided you want to follow. So it's a question of motivation, interest, passion. And so if this is what I want to do, I'll say, I'll come back to you. And it's not going to go away, it'll be there. But for now, I want to focus here. And later on, yes, of course I'm going to come back to it. It's important, and so I'll deal with it. But for now, for these 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I keep bringing my mind back to the spiritual awareness. And we don't say stop thoughts. We don't say make the mind go blank. We don't say go into sheer silence. It's not possible. What we're saying is turn the direction of thoughts away from the things of the materialistic world and humans and activity out there to the world that's inside. Take this opportunity to explore what there is inside.
Does the same apply to you if you're having negative thoughts? Because I think it's fair to say that sometimes people try meditation because they're going through a difficult phase in their life and they try meditation. But what happens if you try and then negative thoughts start to come into your mind? Should you apply what you've just said?
We have an introductory course in meditation in which we're explaining how the mind works, where thoughts are coming from, what is the connection of the conscious, the subconscious, the unconscious mind. So once you understand this, then you understand that everybody has negative thoughts. There's nobody who's free from them. So it's normal.
Including you?
Including me. So it's normal. It's not that it's unusual. And so not to hate myself for that. But what I can learn to do is, okay, this is the way things are going. Can I turn it around? And I become more and more adept at turning things around and looking at things from a different perspective. Okay, it's raining today. Well, so what? It's okay. The plants and trees need the rain. That's fine. I'll do something indoors. Okay, it's a bank holiday Monday and it's raining outside. Well, maybe our family needs to spend time together, which we haven't done for a long time. Going out would have just taken us again into other activity, but can we actually sit and have a conversation together? So you learn to turn your mind in a different direction. And in meditation again, instead of letting your mind dwell on negative things, you turn it around to look at things differently.
In journalism, we try to put sometimes a spin on things, as journalists often do. Tabloids are probably more guilty of that than respectable journalists like myself. But I joke. But so what you're saying is to be positive, to have a positive outlook. You mentioned if it's raining, don't look on the downside that you can't go out. It's about being positive, you say. Is that what you're saying?
There are so many different perspectives to every situation. And if I get stuck in this perspective and things aren't going my way, I'm destroying my own inner happiness and peace of mind. And so that's the critical thing to understand, that I am responsible for the quality of my own thinking and the quality of my own feelings. Human habit is to blame and complain. I'm feeling angry because you didn't bring me flowers today. I'm feeling... I
did!
You didn't bring them.
I didn't.
So we always point the finger outwards. Mahatma Gandhi's around in the atmosphere today. So he said, when you point a finger out there, have a look again.
How
3 fingers are pointing at me. And so what is it that I'm responsible for? And so the path of spirituality teaches me that I'm responsible for what's going on in here, for what's going on in here. And normally, if I don't understand that, then I'll say it's the world that's responsible. But now I know I'm responsible. So now that I know I'm responsible, I have to increase my power to be able to keep exercising my choice. Which way do I want to go? This way or this way? It's up to me. And I can make a conscious choice.
A few moments ago, you talked about your friend, the environmentalist, and climate change has been in the news quite a lot recently, mainly because of our friend over the pond, Donald Trump. Do you think Donald Trump could benefit from meditation?
I think it's very important to have good feelings for him. Our good wishes for him can maybe help him realize that he needs to meditate.
we should maybe get an email over to him. You also talked about spirituality, and how would you define spirituality?
I would say that it's the exploration of the inner world. It's not mysticism, it's not occult, it's not a mystery, but it's an exploration of who I truly am. And it's not psychology, it's not psychiatry, but it's going into the depths of the inner being and seeing what's going on in here. And as a result of that, understanding that I'm not physical, I am the non-physical being. And so the second step of spirituality would be to recognize the existence of a divine being and make that connection. The third step would be to use that energy to bring about change in the way in which I live my life.
Is the Brahma Kumari ethos based on spirituality or religion?
What would you think from the things I've shared so far?
I think on mainly spirituality.
Absolutely correct. Which is why these things are being taken up in 120 countries. Our roots are India, very definitely. And if there's one particular reference point, it would be the Bhagavad Gita. But I see the Bhagavad Gita as having very universal ideas, some of which I've been sharing. And so I'd say that spirituality is at the heart of all religions. And Raj Yoga meditation is actually what is spirituality, the mystical side of every tradition. Meditation, the union with God. You see, when mystics of any background have spoken about their experience of the divine, the language is very similar. Whether it's Sufis, whether it's Christians, whether it's yogis, they're all talking about that love and that high ecstasy that comes in that connection with the Supreme. And so we've become divided in terms of religion, but it's actually spirituality which is at the heart of all traditions, and it's spirituality that can again make us aware in a very strong way of being one family.
And you mentioned China and centres across the world. What is it about the Brahma Kumaris, do you think? Why is it so popular and why does it attract so many people?
It answers questions. Many, many times when you're following a traditional path, your questions are not being answered. But here we find that there's an answer for spiritual questions or even questions related to life. Secondly, it offers a very practical method of direct communion with God. And I think people today are tired of theory. They want to have an experience themselves firsthand. It's not good enough to read about XYZ happening 100 years ago, 300 years ago, but what does all this do for me today? Can I have a practical experience? And so it's very much a practical experience. Thirdly, I think that people want a very simple method to use in their life. So 1 hour's instruction and off you go. You can begin. The journey is a long journey, but at least the start of the journey can be very fast. It's not that you have to sit and study Sanskrit for 4 years and then you start your journey. No, you can start your journey within an hour or even half an hour.
Even it's half an hour. Wow. And we also talked about happiness. Do you have any tips on happiness?
Firstly, to know that it's inside. It's not out there. Secondly, to know that I can generate it because it's inside, and what's going on in my own inner world is something I'm responsible for. I can generate feelings of happiness without waiting for somebody else to do something or say anything. And so, if I remember these two things, I think that's a good start.
I know the Brahma Kumaris is apolitical, but we are just a few days away from a general election, another general election. And on the TV over the last few days, we've seen the various parties speaking, sometimes arguing. What are your thoughts when you hear about some of the debate that goes on and the way people are sometimes communicating with each other? Do you think they could learn a few lessons as well?
If only. If only. I think we're in a world that polarizes everything, and it doesn't need to be that way. It's very interesting to see what happened in France recently. I was there just a few days before the presidential elections, and I was seeing the posters everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I was curious to see what had happened, and the results came through very quickly that night. And so I was pleased to see that it was somebody who was more centre rather than one side or the other. And I was talking to people in France about sponsoring just a simple invitation for a visitor to come from India to go to France in the next few weeks. And they said to me, you know, if it had been the other candidate who'd won, we would have had a question whether we could organize a visa. But now at this moment, it's fine.
Relief.
We know that it's going to be okay. So on the one side, politics has nothing to do with me. And on the other side, it impacts every aspect of our life.
Yes.
And I think it's so important to be able to see two sides and not get polarized this way or that way. I have to say I was very disappointed with the Brexit story, because the more restricted you are, the more limited you are, the more fearful you become. And that's history. That is a reality. And the more open you are and the more in touch with others you can be, the more you learn and grow and develop. And so I was quite shocked when that happened, quite surprised. I wasn't expecting that. So my hope is that whatever happens as the next step here is going to take us to a more unified Britain rather than a divided Britain.
That's the message, because a lot of people are scared. There's a lot of scaremongering as well. So it's about
Absolutely.
being positive once again.
Mm.
We're speaking today just less than 24 hours after what happened last night, which it's created a lot of uncertainty, a lot of turbulence. But how can we remain positive after something like this?
One thing I've learned is that fear is infectious. One person gets afraid and that ripple of fear spreads within 5, 10, 20 people, 100 people. But the other way is surely also true. One person who's stable and they're able to create a sense of stability around them. And so what do I want to do? Do I want to do something that's constructive? Or do I want to be influenced by destructive feelings and then also be part of that destructive negativity? And so I see that spirituality gives me an understanding of the choices that I have. And the choice that I have at this moment is, do I want to be afraid? Or do I want to understand things more deeply and know that, yes, I can tap into the power of my own goodness. I can invoke the power of goodness from the divine and create that canopy which spreads and reaches out further and further, so that we are all under that canopy of goodness rather than the fear which actually increases aggression and division. And so it's a moment of choice. It's very fascinating that when this topic was chosen, it would have been months ago that this was chosen, but we should be talking about this, as you said, less than 24 hours later. And so it's a moment of choice. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? Which part do I want to play at this moment for my family, my community, and society.
A lot of people are scared. Should we be scared? Should we be worried? A lot of people say, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. I was planning to go to a show in London and I don't want to go. What's your advice?
Fear increases my aggression, and that's not the direction I want to go. Fear takes away my own peace of mind. Fear colours my vision and doesn't allow me to see another as my family. And so it's going to create more conflict. I don't want that. What I would want is that we come to an awareness of being a family. Most people from India have heard this expression, Vasudha Kutumba, that the world is my family. But the bit that goes prior to it, and I don't know Sanskrit, so I'm not going to recite Sanskrit to you, but the bit that goes before it goes something like, if I have a narrow and limited vision, then I and my come into play. And if my vision goes above the I and my, then my vision is able to embrace everyone, and then I see the world as my family. And so within that little couplet, it's not just the instruction that we have to see each other as one family, it's giving you the method to go beyond the limited I and my. And if I can do that, then yes, the world is my family. So who am I? If I'm this I, then there's going to be a lot of divisions. But if I'm the spirit, and that is who I am, whether I believe it or I don't, that is who I am. So in that spiritual awareness, my is not 1 or 2 or 3, but my is the world. And so I have to change my attitude away from fear and I and my that wants me to protect who I think is mine in terms of 2 and 4 and 5, to just broadening my vision. And if I can do that, I can embrace the world. And I think that is the only way. Let me share a story with you. I met this woman in Miami some time ago, and she said how she'd been at a beach party. She was in her 50s, so she wasn't a sort of young chicken. So she was been at a beach party, and now it was time to go home, about 2 o'clock in the morning. And she's on the road, and she sees that maybe something had happened, whatever, but she hadn't realized that her fuel was running out, and the car came to a halt. And it was a very lonely place, and she's wondering what's going to happen now. And she sees these 2 big men coming towards her. And she can feel the anxiety rising. And she decides to change that. And by now they're quite near. She opens a car door, comes out, and goes to them and gives them a big hug and says, God must have sent you to help me. And whatever their feelings were before, now they've melted. And so they say, okay, come, what can we do? So one sits with her in the car to protect her, and the other one goes off with a can to get some fuel. And within half an hour he's back, and meanwhile she's had a good conversations with this other guy, and she's on her way safely. What if she'd got upset and afraid or angry? The scenario could have been quite different. But her pure thought and her invocation of God's love, and the scenario became a very beautiful one. So I know that if we can change our feelings of fear and violence into thoughts of pure goodness and love, it's good for us, but it's also good for everyone else around us.
And do Brahma Kumaris believe in chance, coincidence, or you have the opportunity and the desire to change things yourself? Or both?
When good things happen, you'll say by chance. But in fact, there is a destiny that's at work that makes things happen. If you look at the way the human body works, nothing is by chance. Nothing. So who designed it? Who made it? How did it happen? So there's another power at work, which is not human power, which is at work, which is the energy of destiny, the energy of time. But at this moment, the choice I make depends on my understanding and my perception. So I'm not going to say, okay, if I'm meant to drink this water, it'll somehow come wafting towards me and I'll be able to drink it. I need to reach out and take it and drink it myself. Somebody has kindly provided it and kept it there, but it's not going to fly and reach me. I've got to pick it up. And so, yes, we have many circumstances and we have choices within those circumstances. And the choices that I make are going to determine my own future. It's the seeds that I sow that create the future of my choice. So I want to have happiness, I want to have sweet fruits in my life. Let me plant the right seeds and not just leave it to destiny.
And talking about destiny, karma is something that you believe very strongly in as well, and that's something that sometimes some people find uncomfortable, especially if there's something wrong, if there's something's not quite right with them. Is that their karma?
People usually only see half the story of karma. I'm here, and somehow we've tended to associate karma, the word karma has tended to mean bad karma. But in fact, there can be very good karma, there can be elevated karma, there can be pure karma, there can be karma which is really worthwhile. But yes, the position I'm in today is because of whatever happened in the past. But at this moment, whatever I choose to do is going to be my future karma and is going to determine my future destiny. So I can't change the past, but I can change my responses to the past. And definitely I have it in my own capacity to do whatever I want for the future. That's not karma, that's my choice.
Is that another way of saying you can change your future karma?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say everybody is extremely grateful for you coming to Leicester today. What do you think of our wonderful city? I've answered that question, haven't I?
I've seen Leicester since the 70s, so I've seen it go through dark patches, but I see Leicester as a success story. And so congratulations to the Lord Mayor and all the other Lord Mayors before you. But I do see that it's a city where you can come together in this sort of atmosphere of mutual inquiry, and you can come from various backgrounds and sit together very comfortably side by side. And it didn't happen by destiny. It happened by conscious choice and hard work. I know the story. I know that people made a decision that we want to live together in peace and harmony. So I see that Leicester has achieved what it set out to, and it's a wonderful situation in which it's a city that exemplifies harmony for me, a model for many other cities.
It's a city that won the Premier League as well. Do you follow football at all? No?
I knew about that, but I've forgotten about it. So it's not foremost in my mind.
I think we're going to have some more meditation, but I'd just like to personally thank you very, very much for your time. I have to say, I've interviewed prime ministers in my time, Hollywood, Bollywood actors, and I can say I was very nervous about meeting you, but thank you for putting me at ease. I appreciate that. I think Paramjit is going to come up now, aren't you? He's got a big smile on his face. He's always smiling, actually.
Rajiv, thank Thank you for asking these wonderful questions, Sister Jenty. Now I'm going to turn the tables.
Oh, gosh.
You've been asking all these questions.
Right.
I want to ask you, because you've been reporting for some time, for
Yes. 1 or 2 years,
decades, I think. You've covered real stories which have affected people with life-changing events that have left mental and physical scars. How have you been able to report them objectively and remain detached emotionally from them?
Good question. We have to cover a wide variety of stories every day on ITV News, 6 o'clock, Central News, just a bit of a plug there. And it's a wide range of stories. Sometimes the stories are extremely horrific, harrowing, very, very upsetting. We cover court stories where we have to listen to graphic details about things that have happened. We have to listen to stories about children being abused, sometimes killed, which can be particularly upsetting. And what I find that we have to do as reporters is to almost not get too involved. You almost have to, as you said, you have to be objective. How do you do that, you may ask? And I think the way we do that is to try to take a step back from the story. So you have to report that story with sensitivity, with compassion, but not get too involved personally, because the moment you get involved personally, that's when there's a risk that you are no longer impartial and objective. So I think the key is to report stories compassionately and with sensitivity, but to try to be as objective as possible. And as Sister Jayanti said, sometimes try to see two sides of the story.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
So on behalf of the audience, I would like to thank Sister Jayanti and Rajiv POPAT for sharing some wonderful insight into the healing energy of compassion. So a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank Lucky and Jonesy for their wonderful rap. And I thought the lyrics were so apt, they're so relevant to today's world. And I'd like to welcome and thank you for all our distinguished guests, especially the Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayoress of Leicester. And I'd like to thank you for taking this time. Now, I'm sure you want to explore some of the topics that were raised. Meditation, compassion, healing the self, healing relationships. Well, guess what? We're running courses. And you know, it's just the beginning of the month. And every beginning of the month, we have these courses. They're starting both in English and in Hindi, and you can have one-to-one courses. So on Monday, if you're interested, we have positive thinking. On Tuesday, we have Raj Yoga. On Wednesday, we have self-esteem. All starting at 7 o'clock in the evening till 8:30. Details available in our WhatsApp flyers, and you can register for some of the events online. You can go onto our website. And if you want some further information regarding books, CDs, well, we have a wonderful bookshop called The Inner Space. So please visit that. Now, the best moment is the moment of silence, which we experienced that. So what we thought today was we want to leave in that ambience of peace. So I'm going to request Sister Jayanti to lead us into meditation, but afterwards we're going to show, as our small token of appreciation, is to give you a little small gift, a sweet gift, and a blessing card. And each blessing card has an appropriate message that is relevant to you. Trust me, it is absolutely right. Whatever is said, that belongs to you. And I want you to take it because it's yours. And I want you to share that message with everybody else. It's really showing compassion for the self and showing compassion to others. So you'll be guided by the ushers at the end of the meditation session. And if we can do it in silence and just take that ambience. And regretfully, Sister Jayanti has to go because she has a very busy schedule. So she won't be able to stay behind. So after the sessions, she will go. We will miss you, Sister Jayanti. And Rajiv, thank you very much.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Please remain seated where you are. And Sister Jayanti, please, thank you.
just to express my appreciation of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was an honour and a privilege. Thank you.
Let's go on that journey inside. My thoughts reflect on the things I've been hearing. Compassion, fear, goodness, aggression, happiness, pain. So many different ideas, so many opposites. As I go on this inner journey of reflection, trying to sort all this out in my own mind, I decide I want to experience the inner being. I go deeper and deeper within myself and come to that space deep inside where only I can enter. This is sacred space. This is the space which is my own. And here I find silence, peace. Going inwards allows me to go upwards. Coming to the awareness of the Supreme. While I was occupied with the world outside, the tuning of my consciousness was out there, and there was no space to feel the presence of the divine. Now, going inwards, I'm drawn to that dimension beyond, upwards, where I can feel the presence of God. The Supreme, the being of light, the source of peace, of truth, of love. In the presence of the ocean of peace, my mind becomes peaceful. Connected to the being of truth. I realize how I had moved so far away from truth. I'd forgotten about truth. And now I'm beginning to see the difference between illusion, reality, truth. And in company with the truth, the influence of truth is like a magnet, drawing me to itself, so that I move out of the influence of illusion the being of love, is the ocean, and the waves of love touch the soul and heal the heart. I have carried pain and sorrow for a long, long time, but the power of God's love heals the pain and removes the sorrow, and I am filled with love to such an extent that I too can be one who can give love. The power of peace, the power of love radiate out into the city, out into the world, bringing the human family together, creating harmony within the family once again. Human souls working as one family, cooperating, and the world is transformed. God's love and the power of human love creates a better world. Om Shanti. Thank you.